Welcome to Unearthly. Perhaps the most baffling unexplained phenomena of all time is how people are disappearing from US national parks under very strange circumstances. There are massive areas in the United States and Canada from where people are going missing. This is after ruling out animal attacks, criminal activity, and cases where people die after getting lost. Some eerie and very strange things happen in these missing people cases that separate them from cases where people simply end up getting lost and dying. This baffling phenomena was first brought to light by David Paulides, a former law enforcement officer. So let's dive into some of these cases, which are from Paulides' book series titled Missing 411. Jason Elijah Burton. Jason Elijah Burton was just 21 months old when his mother reported him missing from their home at 1:30 p.m. on Friday, December 16, 2011. The Burtons lived in Cross Anchor, South Carolina, in an area surrounded by thick, impenetrable woods and lots of lakes and a river. At the time of his disappearance, Jason was clad only in a long-sleeved t-shirt and shorts and wasn't wearing shoes. He was definitely not dressed for the cold 50-degree weather outside. Nearly 200 volunteers began combing the surrounding woods for him, and the search continued overnight even as temperatures fell below 50 degrees. It began raining, and by daybreak there was still no sign of Jason, and things were looking grim as the temperatures were expected to plunge into the 30s that night. Early that same morning, two officers began kayaking up the Tiger River, which was just a mile away from the Burtons' home, in the hopes of finding him. Notice that they went up the river looking for him and not down. Luck was on their side as Elijah was found. He was just 2 miles away from his home, wet and cold, and lying on a sandbank in the middle of the river. He was soon returned to his parents and grandmother. During the SAR, a helicopter had flown twice over the river looking for him. How did they miss spotting him? Also, how does a 21-month-old child get to be in the middle of a river on a sandbank? How did he make it through the woods and undergrowth that was so dense that even adults had trouble going through it, get to the river, and wind up on a sandbank in the middle of it? This is one of the factors that sets missing 411 cases apart from the others. Missing people, especially toddlers, are often found in places that are extremely rugged, hard to reach, or at a much higher altitude. James Bodenkercher. The Bodenkerchers and their 5 kids lived in Yuba City, California, but on December 6, 1965, they drove to their vacation home in King Beach, California. Their cabin was just a mile and a half from Lake Tahoe and located on top of a steep incline behind which stretched acres and acres of dense forest. The incline leading to the entrance of the house was the only access road to and from their cabin, so they could clearly hear any exiting or arriving vehicles. While his parents and siblings walked into the house, 2-year-old Jamie went straight to the swing located in front of the house. Just moments later, the siblings came outside to discover that their little brother was gone, with the swing still swaying. The frantic family began calling his name and searching for him right away. The toddler had been alone for just seconds. How far could he go in those few moments? The local sheriff was alerted, and soon a large search and rescue effort began, where several hundred searchers went down the sharp incline which led to a busy highway and then to Lake Tahoe. Even the Coast Guard joined the effort, scouring along the banks of Lake Tahoe for the boy. Some divers were deployed to look in the lake for him. But to get to Lake Tahoe, the toddler would have had to walk half a mile through rugged terrain and then cross a major highway all by himself. Dozens of searchers also went uphill into the dense woods behind the house looking for him, and several bloodhounds were also brought in to help find him. To make matters worse, it began raining, severely hindering the search operations. Taken by itself, this rainfall wouldn't seem so odd, but according to Paulides, This change in weather is another strange but consistent hallmark of these cases. In countless instances, just as soon as the search for a missing person begins, the weather turns bad. Either a snowstorm or rain impede the search. Sadly, James Bodenkercher was never found. The cabin was up a sharp incline in a remote area. They could clearly hear any vehicles leaving the road, but they didn't hear any vehicles when James disappeared. Paulides says the real mystery here is how quickly James vanished. Notice that the swing was still swaying when his big brother came back to check on him. How far could a toddler go in those few seconds? Charles McCullar. Oregon has no shortage of nature's vistas, but arguably the jewel in Oregon's crown would be Crater Lake for its spectacular scenery. The lake is a stunning blue nestled among soaring cliffs and greenery. There is no inlet feeding water into the lake as it sits on top of a collapsed volcano or a caldera. Thus, the entire lake is the result of rainwater and snowfall accumulated over thousands of years, making it the clearest and cleanest lake in all of America. The deepest lake in America, its gorgeous blue color draws millions of tourists every year. It's a photographer's dream, and in the winter of 1975, 19-year-old Charles McCullar arrived at the lake with his camera and camping gear to spend 2 days taking photos of the azure beauty. The aspiring photographer had hitchhiked from his home in Virginia and stayed with a friend in Eugene for a couple of weeks. From there, he planned a brief 2-day trip to the lake to capture its scenic beauty and embarked on that trip with his camera and gear in tow. He couldn't have chosen a worse time to go to the lake. A snowstorm had just deposited over 5 feet of snow in the park. Despite this, he went ahead with the trip, though he did instruct his friend to inform the police if he wasn't back on time. When Charles did not return by Feb 1st, the date he said he'd be back, his friend grew alarmed and contacted the authorities. What's sad is that Charles' parents had no idea he was missing until they were informed 9 days later on Feb 10th. Meanwhile, investigations by the authorities revealed that a few skiers had seen Charles near Diamond Lake, which is part of the Crater Lake National Park. The skiers said that the snow was waist high at the time. Several other people also came forward saying that they had seen him near Diamond Lake. One witness said he had given a ride to Charles from Diamond Lake to Crater Lake. Charles was last seen taking pictures along the rim of Crater Lake, so search and rescue began by looking in the area by the lake where it seemed that Charles had put up camp. A meticulous rescue effort involving both aerial and ground search focused on the entire north side of the park, but Charles was never found. Winter gave way to spring and spring to summer with no sign of Charles, despite the exhaustive search operations carried out. His distraught dad threw himself into searching for him full time, spending all of that summer camped at the lake looking for him, but it was to no avail. It was only towards the end of the next year, in October 1976, that a breakthrough was made. A couple of hikers stumbled upon a dirty old backpack lying on the ground. This was in such a desolate, rugged area and so far away from any of the trails that they instantly knew something was amiss. So they handed it over to the park's office. Park rangers Larry Smith and Marion Jack opened the bag and discovered a Volkswagen key inside. The keys turned out to be the ones that Charles' father had said Charles had always carried with him for sentimental reasons. Marion Jack had the hikers draw up a map of the place where the backpack had been found and, along with another ranger, rode on horseback to the remote canyon where the backpack was found and started searching the area. A bizarre sight soon greeted their eyes. A pair of jeans on a fallen Douglas fir tree, positioned as if Charles was still sitting on the log wearing them. The jeans unzipped and the belt undone with the socks still tucked in his jeans. But no boots. It was obvious Charles had never even removed his jeans because pieces of his shin bone and tibia lay inside them and all his toe bones were found inside his socks. No other part of his skeleton was ever found except for his skull cap, which lay 12 feet away from the log. Marion James, who had 30 years of experience as a park ranger, said it was the strangest case he had ever come across. He said it was as if Charles had melted into his jeans. No boots, shirt or winter jacket were ever discovered, which is bizarre as scavenging animals don't carry them off. The jeans were in surprisingly good shape for having been exposed to the elements throughout the previous winter and summer. Charles' knife, camera and wallet were also never found. There are plenty of puzzling things about this case. Charles' jeans were found 12 miles away from the rim of Crater Lake where he was last seen. How did he trudge 12 miles through 5.5 feet of fresh snow to get to this remote area? Why did he remove his boots? What was he even doing there in such terrible conditions? What happened to the rest of his body and skeleton? Where were his winter jacket, shirt and boots? People suffering from hypothermia often resort to paradoxical undressing or removing their clothes despite the freezing cold. So even if Charles had removed his shirt and winter jacket due to paradoxical undressing, they should have been found nearby but were never found. This case fulfills several of the criteria for a missing 411 case, like his missing shoes. In so many cases, missing people's footwear is gone. Also, his remains were found in a very remote location and the weird condition of his remains at the time when he was found. Patrick Eamon. Patrick Eamon disappeared while hiking with two of his friends on June 15, 2012. They were at Mount Lassen National Park, which is at an altitude of 3,000 feet. The three friends decided to split up and explore the area on their own before meeting in the parking lot of the park where they had left their vehicles. The other two eventually reached the parking lot, but Patrick did not. The local sheriff's office was notified and a thorough search of the area was conducted over several days by bloodhounds and dozens of searchers, but no trace of him was found. Early investigations by the authorities ruled out foul play. A week later, a helicopter service rented by Patrick's family in order to find him noticed scavenging birds in a location of the park. That area was then thoroughly searched and his body was discovered there. He was found in the middle of a thicket, just 600 feet away from where his friends had last seen him. To the commanding officer of the team, Lieutenant David Greer, this was baffling. This was literally the area where the search had begun, so they had scarred this particular area in meticulous detail. Why hadn't Patrick responded to the searchers calling out his name? It was mind-boggling that they didn't find him, and Greer even remarked that they had walked past him 100 times. Also, they had ruled out any signs of foul play earlier, and this was confirmed when Patrick's body was found to have no injuries on it and his wallet was still full of money. So many things about this case are puzzling. Why he decided to crawl into a thicket? Why teams of SAI people who searched that exact area not once but many times never found him? Even bloodhounds searching for him went right past him without finding him or his body. This is another consistent oddity of these cases. Missing people end up being found in the same places that have been searched not just once but multiple times. Paulides himself came upon these disappearances in a very unusual way. He was at a national park when he was approached by a couple of off-duty park rangers who told him about the mysterious disappearances of several visitors to the park. They said that the circumstances under which each of these visitors had disappeared were so bizarre that there was no rational explanation for it. As he had a background in research, they asked if he would be interested in investigating these cases further. David Paulides began zealously researching cases of people who vanished from national parks. To date, he has compiled more than 1,500 cases of missing people and noticed that a clear and distinct pattern of high strangeness emerges across all these cases. Some of them have been highlighted here already. Here are some of the others. In the rare cases where a missing adult is found alive, he or she usually doesn't remember what happened during their disappearance. Many people go missing while picking berries. In numerous cases, bloodhounds somehow are unable to track the scent of the missing person, and in some instances, they just lie down and refuse to search further. When found, people, especially kids, tend to be in a semi-conscious state. Many people go missing in areas near swamps, briar patches, and large boulders. As we cover more 411 cases in future episodes, more of these patterns will be brought to light and the oddity of these cases will become crystal clear. So stay tuned, and if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and like.